Um, I'm going to say Happy New Year, but I was scolded for saying Happy New Year after January 4th. Someone said that was the cutoff, but I don't care because I haven't seen anybody. So Happy New Year. Um, okay.
Happy New Year to you too, Peter.
Oh, thank you so much. Um, okay. Our call to order this Coastal Resilience Advisory Committee meeting for Tuesday, January 13th, 2026 at 10 a.m. Um, I'm going to do a roll call of who's here. Um, Tim Brain,
Here.
Doug Rose,
Here.
Gary Beller,
Here.
Sarah Boyce,
Here.
um, Elizabeth Phelps,
Here.
Hillary Hedges Rayport,
Here.
Emily Junkins,
Here.
Matt Fee,
Here.
okay, and staff, Leah Hill.
Here.
Anticipated speakers, Stephen Crees,
Good morning.
Art Gasparo.
Here.
Okay, great. Going to read the script. Good morning. This meeting is being audio and video recorded. Please be aware that other people may be able to see you, and take care not to share your device's screen. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Please silence all devices and phones. For items of public comment, after committee members have finished their discussion on an agenda item, the chair will afford members of the public up to 3 minutes to speak. Members of the public who wish to speak must state their name and any affiliations. To give public comment, you must be recognized by the chair and speak through the chair. There is to be no crosstalk with others in attendance. To be recognized for making a public comment, use the raised hand feature by clicking on the React tab at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and then click on the raised hand button. When you've finished your comment, please click the lower hand button. It's important for me to note that the CRAC isn't required by law to take public comment. We do so because we need your invaluable input. We view public comment as a privilege, and so please remain respectful in your comments and do not disparage other speakers or members of this committee. Okay. So, is there any public comment on matters not on this agenda? And I'm looking right at you, RJ, because you're the public.
No, not yet. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Approval of the minutes, November 18th, 2025.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Doug Rose to approve the minutes, seconded by Gary Beller. Roll call vote. No, I'm sorry, discussion. Roll call vote. Tim Brain,
Aye.
Doug Rose,
Aye.
Gary Beller,
Aye.
Sarah Boyce,
Aye.
Liz Phelps,
Aye.
Hillary Hedges Rayport,
Aye.
Emily Junkins,
Aye.
Matt Fee,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Okay. We need to approve the CRAC template for the Conservation Commission's application review request. I assume you've seen the packet, so you know what I'm talking about. It begins with questions to answer for Concom's application review requests. Anybody have any changes they want to make to it or any concerns they have before we approve it? Sarah?
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted clarification. When you say approve it, you mean like the template itself, the page. Okay.
Correct.
I have one thought sort of question, and I wasn't sure how to bring it up. So I kind of went through this with what's on the agenda for today uh for the Washington Street property. I was wondering if like do we as the committee members, if when we're evaluating this and using this template to go through individually, we each go like for number 2 and number 3, we go to those links and figure it out for ourselves. I think if we're being asked to evaluate something, I think it would be easier if either the Concom or the person submitting the Concom application provides that information for us. Because at this point, I don't know if one of you looked at it and have a different idea of what 2030, 2050, 2070 probability is, not because the data are different, but because we're accessing it differently and we're looking at it differently. And I just wasn't sure if that was something that we are expected to each individually do and then evaluate and come to the table. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I think we each individually do it and then come to the table, and then we come to an agreement, I think, on with all of our opinions, and then say that is what the committee has, that's the opinion the committee has reached on that one thing. And then Leah, working with Tim, formulates it into a letter with all of our concerns, everything we've agreed on. Does that sound right, Leah? Do you want to comment?
Yeah, that's the intention for the template, is to use it as kind of a starting point, discussion point, and then you come to the meeting and you discuss each one of those. But I will say that this is a work in progress, and we are hoping to have a future protocol that would be approved by Concom to have staff, so me, do the initial evaluation, and then if I need like a second opinion, then bring it forward to CRAC. I recognize that, there was a month or so between when Art wanted CRAC to look at this and for this meeting to come, and so it's not really fair for the applicant to have to wait for CRAC's schedule. So that's why we want staff to do it first so that it can really streamline it. But with that being said, we still need to approve the protocol moving forward, because I'm not sure the timing of when the Conservation Commission will approve the future protocol.
Sarah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Thank you. I just I think these are great questions to bring up, and I like that they point to either the page of the CRP or very specific links of like, this is where you find the information. And I think if Leah's or town staff are going to be taking a first stab at it, then that makes sense because it's one person accessing the information. If we are then presented with it for a CRAC, I think that kind of like the application itself, all the information, everyone should be evaluating the same exact information. And so having for each property or whatever the project is, like someone else look at it and then present it would be really helpful.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, no, I was going to recommend that it was a staff recommendation, and I'm glad to hear that that is, because you don't want 7 or 8 of us making stuff up. And I think it's a good start. Under number 8, I think that should also mention public access is required under Chapter 91, that we should have some sort of comment if they are fixing their bulkhead and it's, more high water, et cetera, they've got to put a stair over it, like the guy from the state who came and talked to us said. It's something that kind of gets lost by Concom because they're so busy with everything else. But I think if we could remind the homeowners and remind Concom, that would help. If if they are doing things and raising along the water, they might have to connect to the Great Harbor or somewhere else so that people still have access around the outside as required. So I would put something about that in there. The rest looks great.
Anybody else on the committee have anything to say about this? Okay. We're all silent. Okay, so Sarah, go ahead.
Yeah, I make a motion to approve this with the edits from Matt about public access.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion was made by Sarah Boyce to approve with edits from Matt Fee, seconded by Doug Rose. Roll call vote. Tim Brain,
Aye.
Doug Rose,
Aye.
Jerry Beller,
Aye.
Sarah Boyce,
Aye.
Liz Phelps,
Aye.
Hillary Hedges Rayport,
Aye.
Emily Junkins,
Aye.
Matt Fee,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Okay, thanks you guys. So now we're going to get We're going to get Art Gasparo telling us about the project at 54 Washington Street and look for our advice.
Peter, before we leave this, could I just
Yep.
say one thing?
Go ahead, Gary.
I'm quite thrilled that we are in the process now. You know, the crack has been around for several years, and we all thought years ago that people would want to get our input on this stuff. And now it's actually really happening with this request by the Conservation Committee. So I'm really thrilled about that. And the other thought I had is, I wonder to what extent some of the other regulatory boards in the town might be reminded that they could do the same thing with respect to issues that fall before them that might have resiliency, coastal resiliency issues, such as whether it's the planning board or perhaps the zoning board or whoever. But I'm just thrilled about the process. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary, as am I, that it's working and people are coming to us. Okay. Art, you want to go?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the committee for having me today. I presented and prepared a notice of intent application to the Conservation Commission for the property at 54 Washington Street, which is a one-story single-family home. And the proposed project is to increase the height of that structure. There's not an expansion of the structure proposed other than for additional steps and a platform, if you will, to be able to reach the first floor in the elevated position. And this is a site that is with limited alternatives in terms of relocation. It's certainly within an area subject to flood risk. The flood elevation mapped by FEMA in this area is 11, and it's within a velocity zone. And what we're proposing to do, the owner, is to increase the first floor by about 4 feet from where it is right now, which will put it about 6 feet, the first floor above grade. It would not be fully complying with all building code requirements within a velocity zone, in which case it would have to end up, I didn't prepare the exact number, but probably 10 feet or so above grade, more like what you probably may be familiar with at 26 Washington. If you saw that redevelopment that happened next to Harborview Place across from the Lobster Trap, and how high up that structure is. So we're in similar situation, much smaller structure here in terms of single family dwelling. The owner hopes to, improve the situation, coastal resilience. The foundation would consist of poured foundation walls with flood vents that allowed for the free flow of floodwaters below it. And there are logistics and constraints at this particular property for you have high groundwater and being limited available area really to move in terms of trying to reload. That other site had been essentially cleared of the structure that was there, and it was a new build. In this situation, we're faced with the circumstance of there's nowhere else to move this house, and they're not trying to demo and then do a complete rebuild. They simply want to elevate or raise the structure in the position that it's in. So the ability to go even higher with this becomes even more challenging in terms of the type of foundation that would be required to do that. And you can't really drive piles below a structure like this, but you could get it up on cribbing and come up with ways to put helical anchors in if are needed, and then pour, form foundation walls. But there's a certain height from an engineering perspective that starts to get even more difficult and complicated. So the owner is hoping to come in with a situation that is substantially improved from what exists in terms of elevation. And, currently the foundation now doesn't allow for, the movement of floodwaters, and then this would allow for that. It's not an area, as I'm sure you're aware, that's particularly subject to, erosion. It's much more of a flooding situation. So I did have a look at your checklist. And I didn't have time to prepare sort of an every point answer to that, but without a doubt, this whole area falls under the coastal, all of the probabilities of flooding, whether it's 2030 or 50 or 70, but not within the areas of sea level rise erosion as mapped on the town GIS. So again, we see it as we also have met with both natural resources department, land bank staff in the past year or two. We're aware of the other town projects and coastal resilience projects in the area. We don't believe that this project is going to in any way interfere with that. In other words, we are not, we're staying in the position that we're in and just going straight up. There's really not room to relocate significantly back towards the road. Any plantings would be native, essentially beach grass. You maybe have driven by, there's no lawn or anything. The whole property is essentially surrounded by beach grass. Let me just quickly look at at your thing and see if, so again, there's no pool, there's no bulkhead, there's sort of a haphazardy old, a stone wall that's piled, cobbles or whatever over the years in front of the property, but it's certainly no formalized structure. There is a Chapter 91 jurisdiction here, which runs just seaward of the house. So we're not subject to Chapter 91 for the house itself, and we're not doing any work within that area. We certainly believe that the project is compliant with the wetland protection regulations. We've had to seek waivers in terms of because it is a pre-existing structure within and there's alterations to the structure within no structure resource area, again, from a wetland protection regulations, where within the buffer zone to coastal beach, coastal dune, we're completely within the resource area of land subject to coastal storm flowage. But again, I believe that the project meets all of those performance standards. The project was generally, we had one meeting for the commission. It was, generally speaking, not to speak for, and I know you've got a member here, but generally well received, though the commission, wanted to hear from this committee. And so we continued that application to receive whatever feedback or comments you might have. And I'd be happy to try to address any questions that you may have about the application.
All right, thank you, Art. Committee members, who wants to go first? Okay, I'll go first. Or Doug, do you want to go first? Can't hear you, Doug.
How's this?
That's better.
Okay, so with my AirPods. Sorry about that. Thanks for coming, Art. I think you're our inaugural guest when it comes to individual projects. So thanks for being brave and coming here. I just had a sort of an educational question for myself. And I hope you don't mind giving me a little tutorial here. I noticed on the elevation that's in your packet for Concom that there is what looked like sort of a closed, I don't know what the language is on the posts that the house will be moved up to, right? It's not open air. You've got it sort of with some very nice, aesthetically pleasing fencing of sorts, I guess, that surrounds those posts so that you don't see clear through underneath the house. And my question was, is there any risk in that approach relative to storm currents and things like that? Does that begin to interfere with the flow of water such that it creates other impacts elsewhere, or is this overthink? I guess this is a really basic question as far as engineering goes.
Through you, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead, Art.
So the generally building code requirements for the flood zone is that you provide flood openings of 1 square inch for 1 square foot of floor area.
Got it.
So we would comply with those general requirements, and water reaches its own level, as you know. So as long as it actually can, ebb and flow, and the hydraulic force through that area, it's gonna get in there. I don't think it's going to be a situation of sort of a bathtub that wouldn't drain type of thing. And it's, we would be following standard, requirements for the sizing of those flood vents. What a lot of folks, all the Brant Point, all the, kind of current level of construction, what most of them use are known as engineered flood vents, where they are essentially remain somewhat weather tight until they're acted on a certain hydrostatic pressure, and then that forces them open. Because one of the challenges with long-term maintenance of a home that is completely open underneath is the elements and the rot and your ability to have humidity control. So this kind of, what most of the construction in flood zone these days is such that you can have some level of humidity control all 99% of the time when you're not facing flood type situations. And that's why not just having it sort of completely, wide open. You can't otherwise protect your and again, your HVAC units and your mechanicals would also be elevated, but you'd still have open floor joists and everything else gets up underneath there.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Okay. Anyone else?
I have a quick question, if that's all right. Peter?
Yeah, go ahead. Yep.
Yeah, Art, I'm just looking at that. I wonder, can the homeowner lift this again? Are you going to make it in such a way that it can be lifted and raised a bit more if it needs to be in the future, or?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I
Yes.
would say there's always that opportunity, but I don't know that there's particular provisions being provided for sort of that add-on. And the issue there really would become, I think, the structural design of the foundation, right? Because it's got to withstand, whether you could just suddenly, pick it up and then sister on, if you would, additional blocks or what have you. I mean, it's certainly not being designed for that, because then I think you'd have to over design the whole thing for that higher level. But I don't think that it's any more impossible or different than what they would have to do now, right? If at some point in however many decades that had to happen again, at that point maybe it's a completely different design, or it's a removal of a house. I don't know.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Follow up. Yeah, that makes,
Sure.
in this one-off sense, that makes a lot of sense. I'm thinking of it sort of more down on Easy Street when we give direction to people, of what they should be building to. My sense is they should be built, those are large buildings and they should be able to go up again if they need to be, so they're somewhat equal with the road, and so it's sort of, how do we look ahead and sort of, help, and assist the homeowners, business owners, so that they are engineering it from the beginning. This is a small cottage, and you're going to be able to fix what you need to fix. So it's just something I've been thinking a lot about, having grown up down in that area. So thank you.
And before we get to Leah and Gary, Matt kind of stole a little bit of my thunder, but I was just wondering, as we see the water rise in the harbor and the storms maybe become more severe, does your client, does he have a point at which he's going to say, no, I can't go any further? At what point? Because anyone along this harbor side of Washington Street, they're at ground zero on the front lines of sea level rise. The water is right there. at a moon tide, the water is pretty much level with Washington Street, and then you add a storm. And yes, the house will be up 4 feet, presumably above floodplain, but you don't know what's coming. So I'm just, I mean, it's not practical to lift the house, shift it aside, put pilings in, and then he doesn't have the space, I guess, to do that. Is that correct?
Yes, that would be logistically. I'm not going to say anything's impossible, but it would be a much more complex project to try to figure that out. I'm not sure how it would exactly work, because just the access to the site. You're not going to go towards the harbor. And if you come towards the road, you've essentially blocked yourself out of working there. I think you'd probably have to try to figure out somewhere to move the thing off site and then try to be able to drill pilings. To drive piles. In terms of your question of, and to be clear, this won't actually go all the way to, flood zone compliant. In this particular area, you're dealing with, elevation 11, essentially 7 feet above grade. And under the complete current regulations, that from there, you would have to have another 2 feet of freeboard to the lowest structural member, plus another foot to your first floor, say, right? So, you'd be talking more like 10 feet of, an increase. And now you've got to support a structure up at that height. And, so again, the logistics get much, much more complicated. He's trying to come at this from a project that he can accomplish and improves what was there. And again, this is a pre-existing structure from prior to the enactment of the wetland protection regulations. We really see this as responsible maintenance in approaching this, but there's certainly a point of that they wouldn't be able to take on the project if it was to become just so overly complex to completely comply.
Okay, and just one more thing. The reason we have Great Harbor Yacht Club on the agenda is because it's sort of a beginning for us to start to have all of the property owners along the harbor tell us their coastal resilience plans, so we can get those plans to jibe with what the town is doing. So we also want that sentiment to be extended out to private residential property owners so that they understand that they don't want to do any less than what the town is trying to do, so that we don't have any gaps. We want everybody on the same page. So do you have the sense that your client is ready to do whatever?
I certainly can't speak to, his intentions, other than that he has, attended these meetings. You all know him. He's met with the committee and the Natural Resource Department. But this project is, does not fall essentially within that work zone as we see it, right? That we're staying right within that footprint. And so I think that would be part of, whatever future conversations. And I'm not trying to evade the question. It's just,
no, I get it, Art. I'm just throwing it out there.
How you guys, what ends up happening there, in terms of that stretch, and I've seen the concepts, and I don't know where things are going to go there.
Okay, I appreciate it. All right, Leah, go ahead.
Thanks, Peter. Many of my questions have already been answered, so thanks, Art. Just I guess a clarifying question on the 4 feet. Is that because the structure is contributing, a historic contributing structure? Is that why you picked the 4 feet? I just want to make sure, I assume that the applicant knows, yes, he's going up 4 feet, but
exactly why that number was decided on. I don't know. I wasn't part of the HDC process. This has been HDC approved.
Okay.
These are the plans that were, provided to me. And so.
Okay. And then you kind of hit on it before, but I assume all of the electrical stuff and all of that is going to be elevated to the appropriate.
Well, again, I don't think that it could go to be completely flood zone compliant, but I would envision that it would all be at least equal to the lowest structural member of what is being constructed.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Art. Thanks, Leah. Go ahead, Gary.
My question is similar to what Leah just asked, which is, so the current plan is the height to be about 9 feet of sea level? Is that about
Yes.
right? And my question is about the mechanicals. Having built a house in Brand Point a few years ago, but also in the flood zone, I would not have permitted to put any mechanicals or anything beneath the floor. What they are doing in Boston and other places, certainly with commercial buildings, all the mechanicals, they're not going on the first floor, they're going on the second floor. So now this is a small cottage. What are the plans for all of the mechanical equipment that needs to be there? I assume it can't be under the first floor. And as some of the other questions asked before, what happens when you have to raise a house, in 5 or 10 years? What happened to that? So have you thought about those things?
Um, so if I may, through you, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, sure.
I envision that any exterior mechanicals would be on brackets, at least at the height of the proposed first floor elevation. And then the other mechanicals, as they believe they exist now, would be within the house on that first floor. Now, again, we're in a little bit different situation of Brant Point, which is all, A or still water zones. There are not many, velocity zones really on Nantucket that have residential structures within them, and this is one of those. So, we couldn't and wouldn't be complying completely with elevating to that level, but certainly it would be such that the mechanicals were elevated to the first floor, or at least the top of foundation, which is at elevation 9, which is still, and again, if you go to the other side of the road, right, not that different, then you would be compliant, right? So it's part of this has to do obviously with the FEMA mapping too.
Thank you, Art. Tim?
Yeah, not really a question, more of a speculation. But talking about thinking ahead 25, 50 years when the house may need to be raised further, wouldn't you think if the sea level rise has gone, sea level has risen that much that it's just not a practical neighborhood anymore? I mean, at some point, you're not going to raise a house anymore. You're going to take it down. It's that's probably going to be true eventually all along that strip.
You can answer, Art, if you want.
I'm not sure what, I mean, this is, this owner's home right now, and he hopes to be able to, enjoy it as long as possible. I understand the point, and certainly I think that that's probably in line with some of the acquisitions that have happened in this area. And, there has been a transition from residential, use along here, but you've got a couple that are still, using their properties. And so, what happens in some, future scenario is hard for me to say, but this owner hopes to improve the situation and be able to enjoy the property.
Fair enough.
All right, thanks, Art. Thanks, Tim. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, no, I think there was a comment earlier, I think you made it, Peter, about, are we going to be able to do what the town wants? I think one of the keys here is figuring out what the town wants and being able to relay that clearly so that people are consistent in doing, and understand what the goal is for various areas. And I understand it's a work in progress, but it's hard for neighborhoods, or downtown Easy Street, I'll pick on that again, to do what the town wants when we really don't know what we want them to do yet. And do we want them to do it in a sequenced manner, or how high do we want them to lift it? When do we want them to do it? None of us know exactly when that's all going to happen. And so I think, I support what he's doing here. I think it's reasonable. I think it's going to buy time, and it's going to make it, a lot safer from them being flooded necessarily. So I think I think it's a good start. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Go ahead, Sarah.
Thank you. Yeah, Matt, I want to kind of echo what Matt was just said because I was thinking, once again, as an advisory committee, we can ask Art all sorts of questions, but I think about the future and everything like that. But I think that those are just because we're mired in, planning for the future. But what we're asked to evaluate is this proposal at hand and what the legat and like the Concom is asking us to comment and using the template that Leah created and gave to us, I think that this proposal is a great example of trying to make a home that is in a very vulnerable area as resilient as possible. So I think in everything that everyone's saying is true, like it's a vulnerable area and they might need to raise it again, or there might be these future, things. And I think that's where we put within our letter of recommendation or however it's structured that we communicate to the Concom that just making sure that the homeowner knows this. I mean, because we happen to know this applicant who has come to different committee meetings before, we like assume that they're aware, but the whole reason that we're doing this, once again, is to make sure that the homeowner knows that, that what we all know. And I think that this is a good kind of first project with this template of, here's what we're going to give to the Concom. I think the things for me is knowing that it's in a very high risk area. Obviously, the applicant knows that. They're not expanding the house dramatically or expanding into the waterfront dramatically. It's a raising of the house, as far as I understand, to help with water flow. I think the other aspect is I was like, yay, there's no pool proposed. I mean, I think how many times, Gary, especially, I know you hate the pools in the waterfront. Not that they could build a pool, but I feel like, this is the type of project that we've talked about. I know that there are plans for this area broadly, but obviously this is an individual homeowner and we can't take away anyone's rights to own and use their home. So I think this is this is a really I support this project, and I think with kind of going through that checklist that Leah created, I think that is the information that we can provide to the Concom and then to the applicants.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. Go ahead, Liz.
Thanks, Peter. Yeah, I agree with Sarah. Appreciate the presentation, Art. Just looking at it from our perspective and from a resilience perspective, it seems to be entirely beneficial. There's no increase to structure or impervious materials on the site. It's native plantings and they're raising the structure. So I think it's definitely a beneficial project. And again, just adding the recommendations and making them aware, which they seem to be already, of the projects that are happening. The Francis Street project and the Washington Street projects being the closest. But yeah, I agree. It's a beneficial project and I think it's great.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Go ahead, Leah.
Thanks, Peter. Yeah, I agree with Sarah and Liz about that. The only thing I would add, just putting the coastal resilience hat on, is to elevate it to a higher degree so that, there's less vulnerability for that property. He's already, I'm sure, paying a pretty penny to elevate it. And I respect the logistics too, but with that resilience hat is, get it up as high as you can.
Oh, thanks, Leah. And I'm just wondering about the rock wall, which is loose stones forming maybe a 3-foot wall, maybe a little lower, in front of his house. And he is going to be raising it up. So technically, I mean, I don't know what the rocks are going to do, but when big waves are crashing on the beach, I'm betting those rocks are going to get thrown about, maybe into other people's properties, maybe into the road. Does he have any plans to solidify that wall with cement or any way to sort of contain it? I don't know. It scares me to look at it. That's all.
No, Mr. Chair, I think that would get to a whole nother level of
armoring and different discussion that might not be, in harmony with what the town or the committee ultimately plans along that area. In terms of the ability of, wave forces to relocate the rocks in that area. I mean, and I know, and we've all seen that it can get pretty worked up in there, but it is still the magnitude of that wave is limited by the fetch of the harbor. So it's not like we're on one of the open, either the Sound or the Atlantic, that really the magnitude of those waves is, unlimited and storm dependent. So I don't think I wouldn't foresee, significant damage occurring from relocation of some of those cobbles should they be, acted on. I suspect that over time, what you would see instead, with enough reoccurrence of inundation and no action along that shoreline in terms of dune building or defense, would be that it would actually probably slump seaward, that you would get removal of the unconsolidated sand material on the seaward side of that through, long-term erosive. And then I think it would probably slump that way more likely than just getting strewn all about. But again, I think that's a long-term type of action. At this point, it's all that whole area between that rubble wall and the shoreline is heavily vegetated and quite stable.
Thank you, Art. Go ahead, Hillary.
Thank you. So with all the discussion about elevation and elevating more, we just also have to remember that as it's a historic house in a historic district, that there are also adaptation guidelines from the HDC. And I just think we should remember that the homeowner is trying to meet the requirements of multiple points of view and multiple requirements in the town.
Thank you, Hillary. Anyone else? Gary?
Just a quick comment. When I think about these things, I always go back to the concern I've raised at other meetings, where whether it's 5 years from now or 7 years from now, Easy Street is going to be closed 100 days a year because of just normal high tide, sunny high tide. And I guess the bottom part of the stairs, the way you get up to that 9th floor or 10 feet, wherever that first floor is, you got to go up the stairs. But the bottom of the stairs is going to be full of water 100 days a year. And I don't know if there's anything they can do to try to deal with that possibility. But it's certainly something, when we think about it, we say, what about those 100 days a year when Easy Street is closed, on a normal high tide day? So just one of the issues. We'll all learn a lot from this kind of a process, as what are people going to do with all those stairs going up to the 8th floor or 9-foot floor or 10-foot floor? How are they going to get there? Anyway, that's just my thought about it.
A good observation, Gary. Thank you. Do you want to respond, Art?
I mean, I suppose you could look at doing, elevated walkways at some point in the future if you needed to. I mean, at that point, the road elevation isn't that much different. I think you've got a greater concern and degree of inundation that would be throughout that entire area. And it doesn't really, I don't think there's anything we could do now that would really, change that. If there was a situation in the future and the owners can't get into their house, then they're going to have to come back with some kind of an application or a modification. And whether it's, if I had to crystal ball it, if you will, to some extent, I could envision some sort of a, like a fiber grate type walkway that allowed, the waters, and you pick an elevation that is not typically under, and it's, a certain height above, but I don't know. And I think we're far from that at this point.
Okay. Thank you, Art. Anybody else? Okay, are we all good? Are there any members of the public that have something to say? Okay. Oh, Leah, go ahead.
Peter, just for process, what we did last time is like all the points from this discussion was added to the letter to Concom that Tim and I worked on. And so if that is how we want to proceed, then if someone can make a motion to have Tim and I work on that letter, and then it'll get sent to Concom, it'll also get sent to CRAC. So yeah, just some housekeeping.
So moved.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, the motion is made by Doug Rose to have Leah and Tim work on the letter that's going to go to Concom based on what we contributed today. Seconded by Gary. I'll do a roll call vote. Gary Beller,
Aye.
Liz Phelps,
Aye.
Emily Junkins,
Aye.
Doug Rose,
Aye.
Tim Brain,
Aye.
Sarah Boyce,
Aye.
Matt Fee,
Aye.
Hillary Hedges Rayport,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. All right, thank you very much, Art, for coming.
Thank you all. Appreciate all that you do.
Okay, you guys, we will now move on to a summary on the Great Harbor Yacht Club's resiliency plan by Great Harbor Yacht Club General Manager Stephen Kreese. He's also Chief Operating Officer of the Great Harbor Yacht Club. Go ahead, Stephen.
Good morning, everybody, and Happy New Year. Thank you for inviting me today. I gather that Leah did distribute the Woods Hole vulnerability assessment that we had prepared by Woods Hole. We engaged them in 22 and they performed work during 23-24 and then finalized the summary, as you can see on the cover page, in June of 2025. On the executive summary, and if you turn to page 1, the buildings listed that were the primary focus of the 96 Washington Street location of Great Harbor Yacht Club. The 7 structures are all in orange on, as I said, page 1. Just to recap, I'm sure you've all read it, but 2070 is when they're stating we'll run into an issue, but who knows, it could be sooner. And they also recommend, which I'm staying closely involved with the land bank and the town. So I appreciate you inviting me here, and I'd be happy to be involved moving forward, just so I'm sort of in the know, so to speak, because it is quite a significant property that I currently manage that is in risk, I suppose, of floodwater danger. There are certain things that were recommended as near-term adaptation strategies that are on our radar that are listed in page 19 through 25 for each building, which obviously we've focused on. We're a new structure, as I'm sure most of you are aware, built in 2009, opened in 2010. Our membership of 400 pay a lot of money to be members, so obviously we want this club to be around for a long time. And behind the scenes, we're talking about what we can do, how we can do it, and things like that. So yeah.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Stephen? Go ahead, Leah.
Thanks for coming, Stephen, and sending that. Just curious, I know that there were like some for each building, there were some near-term solutions and then longer-term solutions. Through the near-term solutions, are you all planning on doing any of those anytime soon?
Yeah, it makes sense. We've already done some of them, but again, even the near-term solutions, they're not imminent. I've been here myself since 2010, and I've seen water, but never has it come close to the club, which supports this this document and summary provided by Woods Hole. The building that is in imminent danger, I guess, is the boat barn, which is the structure adjacent to sales. But that building is used purely for storage purposes, and we're proactive because everything is elevated in that building. And when the structure was built, all the electrical panels and everything are actually 4 foot to 5 foot high in that building on the walls. So, and we're mindful of what we put in that building. I've seen more water come from the rear parking lot on heavy rain than I have from the front with sea level rise, funnily enough. So, yeah, it's definitely on my radar and is a document that will be used for future leadership as we roll down the road. And time flies. Think about it. 2000 was 26 years ago, and add 26 more years to this, and we're all going to have an issue on the coastal front. Time flies.
I see you, Matt. So it's I mean, it's in terms, like you say, in front of Sales Seafood, but all that area that I'm looking at what page 6, and I'm looking at the buildings all outlined in orange, and then I'm just looking immediately to the right of that, and that's the beach and the wetlands for which there is no protection at all. So conceivably, water washes up into the street and maybe backwashes down into Great Harbor Yacht Club. I'm just
Correct.
picking out the places, and then I'm looking at the beach opposite where you guys have the flagpole with the cross arm on it, and that sand conceivably could build up, and then you've got water coming in there. I'm just wondering, when you have a storm, when we have a nor'easter, and we're getting waves in the harbor, and our is correct. The fetch isn't very far from Code 2, so and we have Code 2 protecting us. Are you seeing waves coming up over the bulkhead and onto the lawn? Are you seeing that type of action?
Yeah, we get splash over. That's all I've seen. Yeah.
And so eventually, when Code 2 is gone, then you guys got to worry, because then the fetch will be all the way up to Great Point and maybe over to Cape Cod. So, and then when the Great Harbor Yacht Club was built, I remember you guys put them on a lot of pilings.
Correct.
I think it was 100 and something pilings you put it on.
You are correct.
And it was it built to be over a certain height over the floodplain? Was it 6 feet?
When I first arrived here, my first winter of 2010, and I could see, we do lose our red bricks, the little pathway around there when there's washover. It hasn't happened in the past couple of years, actually, but it's happened half a dozen times over the past 16 winters. And I've spoken with Leo Azadorian about what we can do, and he's like, you've just got to repair it. So they're set in sand, and it is what it is. But no, I haven't, other than splash over, I haven't seen any significant flooding around our buildings. And even when the water is high coming down Washington Street Extension, it sort of flows down the road, but it doesn't even come into the parking lots or up to the curb height. So having witnessed it myself on severe storm days, as I said, over the past 16 years, this report done by Woods Hole supports what I've seen. But extreme storms can happen, absolutely.
Yep. Okay, Stephen. We got a few people here, so go ahead, Matt.
Now, I think it's great. I think they did a great job, and it's smart that you are looking ahead. I did something similar with some of my family's properties, 15 years ago with energy efficiency, and had some reports done. And it was really helpful because when we did work, we were able to reference a report and, tuck a couple things each time into what we were doing. And lo and behold, 12 years out, all of it was done. And so it's one of those where if you write it down, you may not do it tomorrow. It might not be the first thing you do, but if you write it down somehow, you look back 15 years later and it's all done. So I think you're on the right path. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Matt. Go ahead, Doug.
Matt stole my thunder. I want to say, Stephen, in many ways, I think what you've done here with Woods Hole Group is a best practice. It's the kind of proactive thinking that we would hope everyone in a high risk area would be undertaking. I have no idea the magnitude of the expense, but I think it was a really well done report, very thorough. And I think you're to be applauded for thinking ahead and not waiting until crisis time hits. The only question I had for you was whether is there a formal or maybe more likely informal network of people in your same position along that stretch of Washington Street or elsewhere? And the reason I'm asking is it would be great if what you've done here could become a model for other businesses and even residences in this same situation. Do you speak to your counterparts in perhaps along Easy Street and that sort of area?
Well, other than the sales seafood market, and then the residences that go towards town from us, they happen to be members, so they're very much involved. And we actually publish this on our member-facing website. And
you have your own social network.
We have our own social network, so they're aware of the situation. And I mean, I think with the value of the properties that changed hands in the past 5 years, adjacent to me that I'm looking at, they would have every intention to work with Great Harbour Yacht Club, the town, the land bank that owns most of the property going towards town. So as far as the apartments on the corner go, we have a number of members that live in those apartments, but they're elevated to a point higher than the 2 residential properties at this juncture. So it'll be interesting to see what land bank do with the Francis Street property.
Thanks again.
Thanks, both of you. Go ahead, Sarah.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Stephen. I really appreciate, as everyone's been saying, like the kind of proactive look at all the properties that you have and kind of being able then to kind of piecemeal the work. And, you know, there's always low-hanging fruit and then like the longer term things. The one thing I would say is this is a really good opportunity to build in some of the more nature-based solutions. I think there's a few mentions of nature-based solutions for certain areas of the property. I recognize this is very building specific. But like you were saying with some of the washover, even, you know, that you're having, I think it would ease some of the landscape probably stress of having salt water on those plants all the time if we have a few more nature-based, kind of vegetation that can withstand some of those salty washovers. But just, you know, as a plan moving forward, I just want to make a plug for that. And then the only other thing I would say is maybe this is not the plan for this, but I think I didn't see anything about, you know, sort of emergency storm preparedness. So I know that obviously there's like a vulnerability assessment of significant storms and storm surge. But I know that there is some capacity for Great Harbour Yacht Club to respond to kind of high weather, high stress, you know, kind of stormy situations. Maybe that's in a different plan. It's more of an emergency plan. So I don't know. That was just one sort of offhanded comment, I guess, more than a question. But
yeah, I can address that.
Sure.
So last winter we were underway with a dining room deck expansion on the water side of the building that turned out really well. And at that juncture with landscaping 15 plus years old, we switched we switched our landscaping and upgraded our landscaping, so to speak, to be more salt resilient. So we did address that. The storm emergency planning, yeah, we have a plan, of course. I enact it and have enacted it at various times during the year, even in July of whatever year when we had a threat of a hurricane. We work with Eric Finger, who is the operator of the Travel Lift boatway. So we are the one and only harbor storm hall. And unfortunately, over the years, on numerous occasions, we've had to go into storm preparedness mode for using our parking lots and everything else for boat storage. That's part of our Chapter 91. So we have no issues there. And then every year, my waterfront director, along with myself, present a harbor safety plan and a harbor emergency plan to the harbor master and Coast Guard. So we have all those covered in other plans because it just makes sense. At this time of the year, we have hurricane shutters that are see-through but work very well that we install in the fall, and they stay up. So the building is locked down basically. So yeah.
Good. Thanks, Stephen. Other questions or comments? Okay. Are there any members of the public that have anything to say? Okay. Thank you very much, Stephen.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. And as I said earlier, I'd be happy to participate, even just for a listening pleasure. If you wish to send me Zoom invites whenever you meet, I'm happy, if my schedule permits, just to join in and hear what's going on.
And if you, as you go along, either this year or in the coming years, and you make adjustments to your plan, you revise it, things come up that you have to change, can you make sure that you contact Leah and say, here's our revised plan, these are our points, that these are the things that we felt we had to change, just so we have a current plan?
Yeah, we have a timeline for that as well. So somebody mentioned, forward thinking. We have sort of a long range planning for buildings, facilities, in motion, short term, this year, 5 years, 10 years. We engage a company to do a complete facilities review to assist us in our long range planning. So that happens every 5 years. And our thought is that these will continue. So in sort of 4 to 5 years is when we would be reaching out to the Woods Hole Group and the Stonehouse Group, who does our facilities, just to back us up. So it's sort of a 4 to 5 year plan. So you shouldn't expect anything sooner.
Okay.
And hopefully I'll still be around.
Are you going somewhere?
No, I don't plan on it, but
okay. All right. You get stung by a bee and no what's going to happen. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. We have an update on coastal resilience video that we're trying to get together.
Tim, do you want to give that update and then I'll add anything? Great.
Yeah, we yesterday, Leah and Christy Kickham and I had a call with Florencia and Jessica, is that her name, Leah? Who are from Town Communications.
Yes.
It was a very useful discussion. We kind of focused. They see this as kind of a series over time. And so we're looking at what's the first installment of that, which is kind of a general, what we've all been discussing for quite a few weeks here, a general presentation about the Coastal Resilience Plan and so on. They asked us to kind of refine some of the points in the proposal that we gave them and get back to them, and then I think they're going to put together a script, right, Leah? And we'll bring that back and we can discuss that. And I think at that point, when we have something concrete to look at, we should have our next discussion. But it was a good meeting. They're very smart and asked a lot of good questions. So we'll see. I asked them sort of where they think this would get the most views, and they seem pretty certain that it's all social media. So that will be sort of the primary place where it gets seen. They agreed that the other venues are all good, but they seem to think that social media was probably where it was going to be seen the most. Did I leave anything out, Leah?
Yeah, no, you hit it all. Going back to kind of the series of it rather than like a lengthy film. I know that you all have talked about how long should this video be. So with the series, they can all then be sort of added into like a larger video that can then be put on, the Crack website, YouTube, et cetera, et cetera. But they suggest first to start kind of 1 to 2 minute videos. Yeah, and start with that sort of educational piece. And we'll be meeting with once we sort of refine and answer all the questions that they had asked us yesterday, then we'll meet with them again. So yeah, it was productive.
Right. And we'll be able to, looking ahead as projects get underway and there's something to update, then we can create additional videos that will, be sort of part of the series. So it seems pretty good. They certainly seem to know what they're doing. So, and also they were going to give us links to 2 or 3 videos that we might look at as just sort of sample approaches to conveying the information. And so anyway, we'll be back with more when we have it.
I had a question.
Sure.
So we're not ruling out, we're not limiting it just to social media.
No.
You guys are just saying that the most attention grabbing will be on social media.
That was their opinion. Yeah.
Okay.
But no, it would be a video that could play in all the places we discussed, the Dreamland in the lobby or before the movies. It could play, at conferences and, events that are relevant to what we're doing. So kind of a multi-purpose and maybe more than one length as well. But that's to be determined. In terms of the proper length for the first edition or the first installment, they kind of said it really sort of depends on the information you're conveying. So to be arbitrary about the length, like, oh, it should be 10 minutes. Well, it's kind of dictated by how much information there is to convey at this point. So we'll just kind of leave that until we start seeing some scripts and stuff.
All right. Thank you, Tim. And
Yep.
thanks, Leah. Any comments from anybody? Okay. Any public comments? Okay. Very good. We have project updates by Leah Hill, Coastal Resilience Coordinator.
Thanks, Peter. So I just wanted to update you all briefly. The Strategic Retreat and Relocation Program got kicked off about 2 weeks ago. So right now we're in the phase of kind of like data collection and data gaps. And we hired Scape for that with the subconsultants Arcadis, and I can't remember the other 2 subconsultants, but one is a legal team out of Boston. Another one is a real estate specialist. The Surfside Wastewater Facility Dune Resilience. So that project actually just got kicked off yesterday. That's what we got awarded by the Office of Coastal Zone Management to look and come up with a 10% concept design for the discharge beds to make those more resilient. For the Easy Street Flood Mitigation Project, I've got a meeting at the end of the month with the town manager to go over the final scope for this project, which again, we have 3 designs. None have been chosen yet, but to move whatever the preferred design is into full design and then permitting. The Francis Street Beach Improvement Project, that project is almost complete. Tomorrow we have a staff meeting to go over the design documents from Scape. And then I met with the Steamship Authority grant writer and Mike Burns, the transportation coordinator, and Vince. They are going for a build grant again this year. And so I guess the last 2 years that they've applied to it, they have not received it, but they have been kind of like moved up to a project of, I forgot what the exact wordage is, but basically an important project that should be funded, just hasn't happened yet. So they're asking for, I believe, $1 million to start the planning process for the Nantucket terminal. And they have asked if CRAC will write a letter of recommendation. So I'll have her come to the next meeting at the end of the month to kind of explain what they're applying for. And then they've made it very easy and they have a template for a letter of support. So that'll be on next month's agenda. And then I don't have it on here, but the Great Harbor Yacht Club Foundation has awarded us a tide gauge and a weather station, and that was installed last Thursday at the Brant Point Shellfish Hatchery right on our dock. So that's really exciting. That data has been collected, been collecting since Thursday. We're going to create a town webpage for the public to be able to go and see in real time what is what's the weather, what's the water temperature, wind speed, what is the tide, and that tide gauge too will also be measuring sea level rise over time as well. So that's very exciting. And that's all I have. I see Matt has a hand up.
Just before Matt goes, the weather station, will it be a weather station on Weather Underground that you'll be able to select?
Yes, so we're hoping to put it onto Weather Underground. I need to contact them to see, what sort of information they need from us to be able to have that as a station on Weather Underground, but that's the intention.
Okay. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I was thinking about this the other night about retreat, relocation, etc. And one of the things that we're doing now is we're sort of allowing more subdivision of lots and a rear lot subdivision and a this and a that and the other thing all over the island to encourage affordable housing. And I started to think about it from, sort of a coastal resiliency standpoint. And I thought, well, boy, maybe we shouldn't be doing that and taking away all these opportunities for house moves. Maybe we should be tying the house moves to the resiliency in a manner. And maybe we could be, maybe we could still do both, or maybe we could say, hey, you're allowed 12% ground cover in this 2-acre lot, but you can have, 30% ground cover to accept affordable housing that's being moved from somewhere. So it's our own kind of, what do you call it? TDR, transfer of development rights, but in language that, we all can understand, and that we already accept. And so is that something, are things like that being talked, will things like that be talked about, Leah, at the, at strategic retreat relocation?
Peter, is it okay to answer?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, absolutely, Matt. So one of the tasks is to develop a transfer of development rights like program. And then also obviously to look at our zoning codes and bylaws and regulations and all of that to see how can we incentivize retreat and relocation. I should say proactive retreat and relocation. So yes, that's all wrapped into the scope.
Thanks for the questions, Matt. And thanks, Leah. Go ahead, Doug.
Thanks, Peter. And Matt's thought got my wheels turning as well. Leah, I think it would be really exciting for CRAC to have an opportunity to meet with the folks at Scape. I'm just glancing at their website. They position themselves as a landscape focused organization, but I'm sure they have a much broader scope than that. But I just feel like there's so much room for creativity in this project, and to hear, there could be some kind of wild ideas that folks on CRAC might come up with that haven't been tested somewhere else. And I personally feel like on this particular project, we should swing for the fences. We should do something really bold and innovative. And in particular, with regard to building incentives to move people or to have people want to do the right thing and relocate their structures outside of harm's way. So I'm just babbling other than just to say, I'm really geeked up about this one. And I really feel it'd be great if CRAC had an opportunity to maybe brainstorm a little bit and learn more from the folks you've hired. Thanks.
Peter, is it okay if I
Doug.
comment?
Yeah, go ahead, Leah.
Yeah, so they are, excuse me, coming up with a very robust community outreach and engagement plan for this project. I think it's about almost a 2-year project. And so within that, I believe, we do have meetings with CRAC to gain your input on those certain waves of engagement where it's appropriate. So yes, you all will be your advice and everything will be highly important for this very new program. And then what you said, Doug, spurred something. The state is actually starting, I guess, a buyout program. It's not, regulated right now or anything. It's just sort of like a proof of concept, but they have reached out to me to be on sort of the chair for that. So that's exciting too. So once we get more information, I'll share it with the committee.
Great. Anybody else on any of these items? Doug?
Sorry, Peter, I'll be really quick. On the Surfside wastewater facility dune resiliency project, I didn't know if I was imagining this or I'm confusing it with perhaps the airport, but is there an opportunity for any movement to higher ground on any of the wastewater rings? Could any of them be moved, discontinued in the area of greatest risk and opened up a new one perhaps further inland? Just a question.
Peter,
Go ahead,
through.
Leah.
Okay, thanks. Yes, so that is one of the major tasks for this project is to create sort of a near-term solution for resilience for those, and then a longer-term adaptation pathway that'll look and see, are we allowed through DEP and, endangered species and all of the regulations to be able to move and retreat some of those beds.
Awesome, thanks.
Okay. Any more questions or comments? Is there any public comment? Okay, moving ahead. And this is an item that we'll always have on our agenda. Committee members' coastal resilience recommendations to the select board to be discussed at a future meeting. Okay. New business, Committee and Natural Resources Department reports from Planning Board, Conservation Commission, Arbor and Shellfish Advisory Board, Select Board, Advisory Committee of Non-Voting Taxpayers, and other committee members. Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, just I'm going to report on a Concom response. We had asked them, we had asked to know sort of what the result of our advice was on 54 Washington Street, or sorry, 92 Washington Street. And Seth Engelberg responded with an email to Leah, and I'll just read what he said. We took all of CRAC's comments under advisement. Ultimately, it led us to including 3 conditions in the order of conditions related to roof runoff infiltration, debris and refuse inspections and disposal, and best practices for erosion and sedimentation controls. And we acknowledged in the meeting that the CRP views this area as not prime for future residential development, but that unfortunately did not make it into the order of conditions because it's not really Concom's business. But so anyway, there was a response, and I think the advice that we gave was useful, which is good to know.
Great. Thank you, Tim.
Welcome.
No other.
I can, unless Doug wants to update everyone about the internal zoning. Do you want to do it? No, me? Okay.
Go ahead,
So
Leah.
we met, what was that, Doug, last week? And just to update you all, so the internal zoning regulation, whatever we want to call it, update group, we are waiting from the state to give some kind of comments back on the language that we need to insert into our zoning bylaws regarding the flood zones, because we need at town meeting that will go forth to hopefully be passed so that people can still be in the National Flood Insurance Program. So they're calling it the 2020 model bylaw update, but it's actually a mandatory update. And so we're very close to that. That'll get put into the warrant and then be up for town meeting to approve. And it's really not like big changes. It's really just sort of like some housekeeping. You need certain words in particular areas. There's nothing really is going to change, but we do need to update that language.
Thank you, Leah. Go ahead, Matt.
The select board had a workshop yesterday on septic and sewers and Somerset Extension and just a discussion in general. And it is interesting to me how tied into sort of coastal resiliency and the things that we're dealing with, the future of some of that stuff is, as we all kind of know. And it was, I think, important to point that out, that some of the water is going to rise in certain areas and change the hydraulics and and there's going to be areas that we thought we wanted to, we like in Matticat that we thought we wanted to sewer everything that we may not want to, or be able to afford to, or might not be smart to, various reasons. And so I think, I think that's being more considered in discussions now than it was 15, 20 years ago when some of the sewer planning was really just started. And so I think that's all a positive. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Matt. Anyone else? Okay. I need to do this because I should have done it at the beginning of the meeting, and I apologize for not doing it. I wanted to welcome Emily to our committee. She's now officially our Nantucket Conservation Foundation representative. Take your time getting into it, Emily, and don't worry if you don't say anything. It's totally fine. It's when you feel comfortable and have your feet under you. We're really glad to have you. Okay. Discussion of upcoming meeting dates and future meeting topics. January 27th, 2026 at 10 a.m. is our next meeting. Okay. Deanne, I see you have just joined the meeting. Is there a reason why, and did you have any public comment?
No, thank you, Peter. Just checking on things.
Okay. All right. Well, we're all done, so I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion to adjourn by Tim Brain. Second by Matt Fee. Roll call vote. Matt Fee.
Aye.
Gary Beller.
Aye.
Emily Junkins.
Aye.
Sarah Boyce.
Aye.
Tim Brain.
Aye.
Liz Phelps.
Aye.
Doug Rose.
Aye.
Hillary Hedges Rayport.
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Great, guys. Thank you very much. We got it. We got done early. And it's warm out, so let's